Good morning, Professor Badrinarayan.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
नमस्कार।
हाँ, नमस्कार जितेंद्र जी, नमस्कार। और
कैसे हैं सर? बढ़िया।
Couple of more minutes.
बढ़िया, आप कैसे हैं?
बस बढ़िया। जो कट जाए सब अच्छा।
हाँ, सही बात है, जो कट जाए वो अच्छा, एकदम सही।
नमस्कार सर, प्रोफेसर कौशल पवार
जी। नमस्कार।
ये इनसे मुलाकात है आपकी सर? बद्री जी।
जी, मुलाकात तो है।
संस्कृत में प्रोफेसर होके आई हैं हमारे वहाँ ये।
हाँ, जी।
सर आप भूल गए मुझे?
हाँ, नहीं कह रहे हैं मुलाकात है, कह रहे हैं मुलाकात।
आपको याद दिलवा देती हूँ, मैं जेएनयू की स्टूडेंट रही हूँ और आपके साथ काफी देर तक दलित साहित्य पर चर्चा हुई है।
हाँ, मुझे याद है, मैंने तो पहले ही कहा कि हमारी मुलाकात ऐसे थोड़ी हो सकता है।
आपकी पुस्तक बड़ी चर्चा में है।
हाँ, सही बात है जी।
रहनी चाहिए, किताबों को तो चर्चे में ही रहना चाहिए।
हाँ।
किताबें आए तो उनको चर्चे में ही रहना चाहिए।
चर्चा कहें, कुछ चर्चा कहें।
नहीं ठीक है। अरे क्या है,
बड़ी चर्चा ज्यादा अच्छा रहेगा। क्यों
क्या है,
आपकी अनुमति के साथ
गोस्वामी जी कह गए हैं कि जाकी रही भावना जैसी प्रभु मूरत देखी।
अभी जयपुर लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल में थे, तो वहां कईयों ने कहा कि भाई ये तो जो आपने कहा था इस किताब में वही यूपी इलेक्शन में हुआ। तो हमने कहा मैं क्या करूं भाई, अब कहा था तो कहा था, हो गया तो
नहीं, वही मैं कह रहा था ना, कुचर्चा पे मैं कह रहा था कि गोस्वामी जी कह गए हैं कि जाकी रही भावना जैसी।
जी।
मैं कह रहा था गोस्वामी जी कह गए हैं ना, जाकी रही भावना जैसी प्रभु मूरत देखी तिन तैसी। कुचर्चा पर यही होता है।
सही बात है, सही।
लोग अपनी मनसा की चीजें ढूंढ निकालते हैं।
सही बात है।
एक दिन अनूप जी भी आपकी चर्चा कर रहे थे, ऐसी ही बात हो रही थी। तो
कौन?
अनूप कुमार।
हाँ, अनूप तो हमारे पुराने दोस्त हैं। इलाहाबाद जिंदाबाद।
एक प्रमोशन और मिल गया है उनको, एडिशनल।
अच्छा।
चले गए।
तो आप तो काफी एक्टिव हैं जितेंद्र जी, लगातार आप लिख रहे हैं, बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
कुछ करता रहता हूँ सर।
बहुत अच्छा, जीवन का तो यही मतलब है, और क्या और हम लोग कर भी क्या सकते हैं।
और हम लोग कर, मूल चीज यही है कि सीखा ही यही, तो और करें क्या। जब से होश संभाला यही सीखा, और
इंटेलेक्चुअल और क्या कर सकता है बस।
सर कमल भारती ने बहुत अच्छी टिप्पणी की उस किताब के ऊपर आपके लिए।
हाँ, क्या करें, कंवल जी तो हमें हमेशा वो
भारती जी लिखते रहते हैं आपके ऊपर।
हाँ, हमारे कहते हैं ना, ज्यादा प्रेम है मुझसे उनको।
क्या होता है कि कई बार प्रेम कुछ लोगों का चिरस्थायी होता है। वो बदलते नहीं अपने स्टैंड से।
अभी एक सेमिनार में हूँ, अभी कॉल करता हूँ आपको। हाँ, नहीं, अभी हम आपसे बात करेंगे, खाली हो जाते हैं। ठीक, अभी एक घंटे में खाली।
मेरे ख्याल से अब कार्यक्रम शुरू होना चाहिए। मैडम तो हैं?
I've just informed the VCO.
ठीक है।
And he said he is joining us.
Ma'am, I have to speak only 15 minutes, no? 15 minutes?
Half an hour, sir.
जी?
आधा घंटा।
हाफ एन आवर, अच्छा ठीक है।
Yes. बोल दिया?
मॉर्निंग सर।
जी नमस्कार। I think VC sir had joined, so
Good morning, sir. Vice Chancellor has joined, and so have our distinguished speakers for this morning. And I would now like to request Dr. Anamika Shukla to begin the program with your permission, with everybody's permission.
With due permission, may I embark upon beginning the program? May I?
Please, please, please.
Yeah, thank you. Namaskar. A warm welcome to all the distinguished guests. A very warm and hearty welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nageshwar Rao ji, our Director, Professor Malti Mathur, distinguished speakers, my colleagues and friends. We are here to celebrate the journey of music. It is a very pleasant, sunny morning, and we embark on the journey of exploring the journey of Bhojpuri music. As the title itself suggests, today's webinar, which talks about music and the migrant, it calls upon the idea of celebrating music as being an overall pervasive form of art which binds us and unites us, all of us from different lands, different cultures, different backgrounds and languages. Before we embark on celebrating this diversity of music, let us bow and respect the Kulgeet of IGNOU. So we kind of listen to the Kulgeet of IGNOU.
ये है जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, ये है जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, सरल सुगम शिक्षा का आलय, जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय। ज्योत जलाए ज्ञान की, स्वाध्याय की, अनुसंधान की राह दिखाए वंचितों को, शिक्षा के अधिकार की, ना उम्र का कोई बंधन, ना बंदिश परिधि की, घर घर है बना शिक्षा का देवालय। ये है जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय।
जन जन का मान है, सम्मान है, पहचान है,
जन जन का मान सम्मान पहचान है,
राष्ट्र का आह्वान है, वरदान है, अभिमान है,
राष्ट्र का आह्वान वरदान अभिमान है।
सर्व सुलभ सर्वोत्तम शिक्षा का है वादा, मुक्त और दूरस्थ शिक्षा का महालय।
ये है जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय। देश विदेश पटल पर भूषित, नवाचार से सज्जित, गुणवत्ता से परिपूरित, ज्ञान वाणी ज्ञान दर्शन, ज्ञान कोश से संचित, ज्ञान कोश से संचित, सर्वगुण संपन्न शिक्षा का हिमालय, शिक्षा का हिमालय। यह जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय, जन जन का विश्वविद्यालय।
Thank you. Today's webinar will offer an introductory and historical overview of how Bhojpuri and its folk music has been reinvented, remixed, and reimagined over times through its journey with the migrants. The webinar will also explore how Chutney music, as a legacy of the indentured experience in the region, has complicated and diversified the politics, the racialized politics of the Caribbean identity, and what being Indian in the Caribbean means in the present day. On the lighter note, I would like to say, what do you get when you take a handful of Bhojpuri folk songs, slowly blend in West Indian Creole, add a dash of English, and stir firmly on a bed of instruments such as the dholak and the harmonium? There's only one word to describe this delicious mishmash of musical styles. We call it chutney, or the chutney music, and it is the staple of the Indian community in the Caribbean, the South African nations, the nations of Guyana, and the islands of the large Indian population, such as Fiji and Mauritius. So we are going to embark on this journey, trying to understand how has Bhojpuri happily blended with the other folk music, and we've come up with this new chutney music. So I would like to request our director, Professor Malti Mathur, to come up and give us an introduction as to what this is all about. So with humble request, she's always been a guide and support, and she's somebody who's been, pushing us into, she helps us evolve every day. So she's supporting us, she's guiding us, and she's made us travel through this journey. So it's going to be an interesting journey today, and we're deliberately and desperately waiting for her introductory remark about what are we going to explore today. So over to you, Professor Malti Mathur. Thank you.
Thank you, Anamika, for that very generous introduction. And first of all, before I start saying anything else, I'd like to accord a very, very warm welcome to all those who have joined us today, to our Vice Chancellor, to the two speakers. A very good morning to you, Professor Badri Narayan, and top of the morning to you, Daryl. And Daryl, thank you so much for being awake at this ungodly hour to be with us. He has joined us from Toronto, Canada, and it's around 1:32 a.m. So to assuage my conscience, Daryl, it is still morning with you. So I maybe shouldn't feel so guilty about keeping you up awake. Also, I'd like to welcome all our Pro-Vice Chancellors, the directors and heads of divisions, and all those who have joined us from the regional centers, and of course, our very own faculty with the School of Humanities. When I was speaking to Professor Badri Narayan, when I was requesting him to be a part of this webinar, I told him that my takeoff point for planning I'm sorry, I think I got cut off a little. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, please.
I read a random article on chutney music, actually, and I had absolutely no idea what it was all about at that point of time. And what I read intrigued me greatly because I had a very shallow knowledge about Bhojpuri and about its music. Of course, one heard its music, especially during Holi, in various films as well. And but I had no clue about what it actually meant. I had also read about the Girmitia who has spread out over the Caribbean, Fiji, as Anamika just mentioned. But I did not really have much knowledge about the songs, about all the culture that they had carried with them in the small gutteries that they carried on the ships, all the Jahaji bhais that went together. So when I read this article on chutney music, it was so interesting. And then I embarked on my own journey to see how I could possibly curate a talk which would encompass all these elements of not just the music, but also the migrancy, and what that migrancy and the music together entailed in today's world. And I fortunately got in touch with Daryl Baksh after a lot of exploration, and he very, very kindly and immediately agreed to be a part of this. And then I was very fortunate that I was able to get in touch with Professor Badri Narayan, who is an eminent social scientist who has actually worked on the migrant Bhojpuri songs. So I am so happy that we were able to get two people who are actually working in this area to be to us. And Daryl, of course, is staying awake in order to speak to us. Thank you, Daryl. And I had actually envisaged another aspect to this, since it is Holi. I had requested someone else in Trinidad to talk about Phagwa songs in the Caribbean. And that sounded very promising and interesting, but unfortunate zones didn't really match up together. And I would also like to thank Professor Badri Narayan and Daryl for being so patient, because I was trying to juggle speakers and time zones and a whole lot of other things. And I kept vacillating between times, and they were very patient and they put up with all of this. And I am so happy that they were so patient and understanding. So thank you very much. And the chutney music sounded very interesting, because as a person, personally, who is at home in the kitchen, on the music concert stage, and in the halls of academia, this seemed to be the perfect mix that we could have for talking about not just the migrants, but also everything that they carried with them, as I said, the culture, the music, and how that intersected and interacted with the environment in which they found themselves, how they kept parts of themselves, how they kept in touch with their roots, but they also assimilated and borrowed and adapted to form their own vibrant kind of a culture. So this is a webinar that I have been very excited about personally. I have been looking forward to that, constantly messaging and talking to Professor Badri Narayan and to Daryl. So thank you so much all for being here. And of course, I'm extremely grateful to our Vice Chancellor for always encouraging and supporting and approving all kinds of activities for the Center for Modern Languages, which we have established in the School of Humanities. So thank you all very, very much. And I completely look forward to listening to you both. So thank you and welcome once again.
Thank you, Professor Malti Mathur. As we all know that this music is a vivacious blend of Bhojpuri percussion and Afro-Caribbean beats is what is chutney music is all about. Chutney music is like much like its edible counterpart, which is flavorsome, which is distinct, and also radiant. It serves as a culinary milestone and a cultural, and also has a rich history. To this day, the infant born within the temples, wedding houses, and cane fields of Indo-Caribbean legacy to the indentured servants of the Indian homeland, these laborers were brought to the field plantations of Trinidad to work along with their African counterparts. And soon the Indian music and culture, and thus pioneered this exotic genre. So we're going to be, in this interesting journey today. Before that, with all humble request, again and again, thanking our Honorable Vice Chancellor for his continuous support and encouragement, I would like to request him to speak a few words as a presidential address. Over to Professor Nageshwar Rao, the Vice Chancellor. Thank you, sir.
Good morning to all of you. First of all, I welcome Professor Badri Narayan ji and Dhiren Baksh, who will be with us for the next 1 hour or so to enlighten us about this theme, the music and the migrant, the journey of Bhojpuri. The great momentous occasion, the Center for Modern Indian Languages is continuously striving to go for these activities, which is going to strengthen our languages. And the theme which was chosen, especially when I'm looking at the memory travels of Professor Badri Narayan, migration songs in Bhojpuri. So music is also being migrated. Till now, we were listening about the people's migration. We are talking about the birds' migration, because there are birds, they move from this place to a distant 7,000 to 8,000 kilometers in a particular season and come back again. So now this music is also flowing like that. And the whole world has become one as far as music is concerned, because it is an area which strengthens our energy base. It gives us lots of inspiration and motivation. And rightly, the Center for Modern Indian Languages is working on it to support all those initiatives which require more and more inspiration and the motivation. We do have the Center for Bhojpuri languages also earlier, and a lot of work has been done in that sphere also. But what we have done later on, when we see the national education policy, is focusing on the mother tongues, strengthening of our mother tongues. Then we all thought that how to go for it. So therefore, this Center for Modern Indian Languages, it has been constituted as an unit, and the School of Humanities is taking special interest to support all the initiatives and activities which are being carried on under this center. I want to listen more rather than speaking on this, because people are gathered here to listen the music, the memory travels, whether it is the chutney music, that is the Western music, or the Indian music. So how both are to be compared and how both are to be presented before us, that will be of great learning for most of us. It will strengthen our mind power, because I do remember when we talk about strengthening our minds, the people say that the music is one of the important ingredient which you all have to look into it. Music supports the creativity. Music promotes the innovation. Music promotes the inspiration also. So that particular theme has been taken care of by our distinguished guests. I welcome both of them. Especially, I know Badri Narayan personally. He may not be knowing me. Because Govind Vallabh Pant Social Science Institute is very close to my heart. And I had been to that place a number of times also. But today we are fortunate enough to be seeing here with us. Great appreciation and my respectful regards to him also. Daryl Dwaksh is also welcome. I welcome him because he's going to talk about the Caribbean music. We are eagerly waiting to listen to them. And this will serve the purpose of having this theme, music and the migrant. So, Madam, wish you all the best. Your good initiative, for which I know that you took time from me 20 days back. So because still I get lots of issues in between, so I make minor changes in my schedule. Accordingly, I have shifted somewhat my place from 12:15 to somewhat earlier, with special request to my distinguished guests that please bear with me, that I have consumed their valuable time when they are supposed to give us the music for us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for support. And you're somebody who's constantly guiding us, supporting us, and also encouraging us. Our Vice Chancellor is a constant support, and he's somebody who shows us the path. And we travel, we kind of evolve day by day. Every morning we evolve, we embark on a new journey. So thank you, sir, for your kind words. As we move on today, I would like to welcome Professor Badri Narayan. He's going to talk about memory travels, which says migration songs in Bhojpuri. A social historian by education and currently a professor at the Govind Vallabh Pant, social and anthropological history, and also issues related to the scheduled castes and scheduled classes, including identity formation and the question of power. His recent publications also include Women Heroes and Dalit Assertions in the North Indian and Fascinating Hindutva Saffron Politics. He's been a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. He's also been the visiting fellow at the International Institute of Asian Studies, University of Leiden. He's also been an HGIS fellow at the Royal Tropical Institute, Amsterdam. Dr. Badri Narayan Tiwari was also the recipient of a Fulbright Senior Fellowship and also the Smart Fellowship, University of Cambridge. So I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a matter of great, so we are all impatient to listen to you. So thank you for being here, and over to you, Professor Badri Narayan.
Thank you. Am I audible to all of you? मेरी आवाज जा रही है? Listening to you?
Yes,
sir.
Good.
Yes,
So
yes, sir, you audible.
Thank you. I am very thankful to Malti ji, her center, Jitendra ji, and other friends who are here for inviting me in this to deliver a lecture in this Jan Jan Ka Vishwavidyalaya, which is being led by Professor Nageshwar Rao ji. And sir, we know you, and we have a lot of respect for you. You are we always feel proud that you are also from our city. You are from the nation, but you are also from our city. So I'm really happy to be part of this. Be part of this discussion. Some voice is coming. Some voice is coming. Yes, now it's okay. So yes, so this is opportunity for me to be part of this discussion, and we in our institute are working on this migration music since 20 years, and we have a museum here. This is Museum of Migration in this institute, in which we have traced the history of the migration of the music from India to Suriname, and Suriname to Netherlands, and Videsia music kind of thing. We have worked on that. So Daryl is here. Daryl, as a scholar, is working on this issue, and he will talk about the chutney. But I am going to talk about how music travels, and when it travels, how it travels with the memories and the practice of the people. So memory also travels, and through memory, music travels, because music is a part of our memory, and also it's also a part of our practice. So if you see the history of the migration from India to diasporic country, all the South Caribbean countries, you can see that when people migrated from here, they lost everything. No, they don't have. They lost their families. They left their family. Most of them. Some of them took their family from here, but most of them left their families. But two things they took with them. One is culture, and other is music. And how they took it, not in the terms of tangible object, but intangible forms, like dholak. No, dholak they ordered later to bring from here, from Calcutta. They couldn't took the everyone together the dholak, but they had some of them took dholak from here. And there is a Dutch doctor who was a doctor on a ship who was taking them from here to Suriname, and he wrote one of the memoirs, and he wrote that ये जो भारतीय लोग होते हैं ये बड़े डरपोक होते हैं, जब मौसम खराब होता है तो वो छुपे रहते हैं डेक के नीचे, but when the weather becomes good, they come on the deck and they start singing. They start singing. Some of them also beat dholaks. So it means some of them had a dholak with them, and they went from here. And you know how music, which they took them with them from homeland to destination, how it worked. It worked. All we say that we are going to celebrate music. We say that exotic. We say that very colorful. But music is also history of suffering of the community. It's a memory history of the suffering of the community, and those suffering are being recorded in their memories, in their music. And the migration music, and then in those music, if you analyze the text of those music, most of them refer their separation from the homeland, separation from the family, and how they separated, when they separated, when you can't get the answer, but how they separated and what they lost. So it always appear in their songs. And in this way, songs or music helps to recover the loss through which they suffered after migration, when they left this land, and during the process of migration. So first proposition which I am offering, that music travels with the memory, and it travels with the cultural body of the public, those who migrate public, migrants, and it goes with them to destination. And when it goes in destination, how it worked? It used to work as a recovery of loss, because every time it's not possible to return back to India. Many people we met in the Suriname, they just die. They are 75 years old, and they had a dream that they would go back to India, but they couldn't go back because of various reasons. So in that situation, through music, they used to remember their losses, and through those remembrance, they recover their losses. So memory also work as a recovery of loss. And so second proposition which I offered is that music in destination worked as a recovery of loss for the migrant community. And through those music, singing, performing, they used to recover the loss through which they suffered because of the migration. You know, migration is a process, and the entire world is made because of the migration. But in that process, many things happens. I used to tell that the most of the migrants to whom I met in Netherlands, they are half, they are half, they are not full, because the half they left in India, and half they took with them. And how they complete themselves by these genres, these repertoires, these songs, this music, this literature, this remembering Indian text, they make them complete there. And we have collected a lot of interviews with the people in Suriname and the land, that about their identity, what happened, how they narrate, the entire process of narrating their self. And when they narrate their self, you can find there is an urge of making them complete through this kind of the cultural materials, songs, etc. So in most of the songs which migrated with them, Bhojpuri songs, there are a lot of, I think we lost in India many song traditions, but they have still preserved many of song traditions. Ropni songs, various Ropni songs. It's not only chutney, there are various marriage songs, chutney, Ropni songs, when they put dhaan jab ropte hain kheton mein, that kind of plantation songs. And then various kinds of the Videsiya songs, which we call. Videsiya song is actually migration is a history of our society, and people used to migrate. And when they migrate, it produced the cultural traditions also. And one cultural tradition is Pardesiya, those who migrate but used to come back, seasonal migrations. So people call in the songs Pardesiya. You may remember there are a lot of songs which we have in which we say Pardesi, wo Pardesi, Pardesiya this, Chan Pardesi, in every language, in Punjabi, Bhojpuri, those who are the migrant society, from where the people migrate. There you can listen many songs which we call a typography of type of the Pardesiya songs. And there is a Videsiya songs. Videsiya, what it means? Videsiya means those who migrated from here but couldn't come back. Those who migrated for longer time couldn't come back. And one of our eminent Bhojpuri folklorist and the singer, Bhikhari Thakur, who composed a song tradition that is called Videsiya. And Videsiya is not only composed by him, there is a tradition of the poets and singers before him also, those who used to compose this kind of songs. And Bhikhari Thakur brought all those songs tradition together and make a repertoire that is called the Videsiya tradition. Videsiya tradition is a musical folk tradition which also involve theatrical performances. And in those Videsiya tradition, you can find a lot of stories of why we left. The people ask question, and this question answer form in which Bhojpuri people ask, or the singer himself, either he is singing in Netherlands, or he is singing in Suriname, or he is singing in Mauritius, he is asking himself why you left this land. And then he replied back, because of this, because of this, because of this. And there is a guilt you can find to leave this land in those song traditions. And the process of replying those or reducing those guilts through song traditions, because those who left, and they in various ways they rationalize and they evolve the argument why they left. And there was a poverty, there was a this, there was a that, a lot of arguments you can find in the song tradition itself. So songs are in that way social text, and and you can read those social texts as a social history also of the community. So third thing which I am going to propose, first is memory migrate, through memory music migrates. Second, when it migrates and when it reaches to the destination, it helps to recovery of the loss. Thirdly, I'm going to propose, or I'm proposing, that these musical traditions, musics are the social text of suffering of the community. and also coming out from the guilt of the separation, because many of them left their wives here and they made their families there. And so the question answer come in the form of the wife. Our wife raised question mostly, why you left in those song traditions? And then they reply, we left because of this, we left because of that, we left because of that. So it's very interesting Sawal Jawab method. And now this is the another form which evolved in our Bhojpuri music tradition, that is Batohiya. Batohiya means now they are coming back to see the land. So the Batohiya tradition says, look, you left a very precious thing. India is like that, India is like this. Sundar Subhumi Bhaiya Bharat ke desaba se mor pran base him kohare Batohiya. No, lot of and in 1924 it was composed by Raghubir Narayan Singh, a Bhojpuri poet, and that was the time when migration, indentured migration was being stopped. In 1922 it stopped, and the song composed in 1924. So you can understand the link between those song traditions and the history of the migration. So this is another thing. Then music is always a very flexible genre. No, it always adjusts with the way community adjusts in society. Music also adjusts, and in that process of adjustment, it take many things, it lose many things from the destinations. So you are going to talk about chutney, know how this hybridity came, this Dutch words and the Bhojpuri Sarnami words and the Bhojpuri words and the Audhi words, the Magahi words, they all mixed together in the Sarnami music, in the music of the Suriname and Netherlands, indentured music of the Suriname and Netherlands. There are a lot of intermixings. No? In India, we have Bhojpuri, we have Magahi, we have Maithili, but for Sarnamis, they are all together and with the Dutch. So very interesting hybridity. The Homi Bhabha used to theorize this entire process of hybridity. So hybridity is one of the ways to adjust in the society and reframe themselves and remake themselves. So in that process, the music also take many things and lose many things. So if you see the records of the music of this diaspora, the first phase of the migrants, when they used to sing, their mode of singing was different than today. The current generation are singing. What is difference? First of all, I would like to say that, as I said, most of them took with them not the tangible aspect of the music, but intangible aspect in the memory, through memory. But later they ordered, because the ships used to come to Calcutta, and from Calcutta they used to go every in 3 months or 4 months or month, like so. So they used to order for the dholak, for the jhal, the people who go from the ship managers, if you come this time, please bring a dholak for me, bring this Videsiya kitab for me, like that. This kind of things they order. And there is a biography of Munshi Rahman Khan. It's one of the Caribbean migrant who wrote his biography, and he says that whenever ships comes to Suriname, we all surround the ship to take our goods, ordered goods. किसी ने नैनसुख कपड़ा ऑर्डर किया है, किसी ने ढोलक ऑर्डर किया है, किसी ने झाल ऑर्डर किया है. So the tangible part of the music they brought later with them. Third, fourthly, the Arya Samaj, various kinds of social reform movements, which also expanded in those destinations, they helped to revive the Indian music societies. Arya Samaj, Kabir Panth, Ravidas Panth, they all have a sex there, and they sometimes Munshi Rahman Khan used to mention that even the beats of the dholak, kaise dholak bajaya jayega, it was being taught by the Arya Samaji missionaries to us. So in this way, music preserved, music survived there. So the first phase of the migrants, those who migrated, in their song, you can find very slow rhythm with a very pathetic tunes. Because this is because they left this country and they left and went there. So they had a lot of sufferings, and because of those suffering, the basic nature of Bhojpuri music is slowness and the pathetic tunes. These traditions they took with them there. How much time I have? 5 minutes? Malti ji, or 10 minutes? Kitna hai?
Please continue. Please continue. You have about half an hour or so, sir.
तो अभी 10 मिनट बोल सकते हैं ना? 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, no problem. So they took so the slowness and the pathetic tunes were part of the entire Bhojpuri culture in the destination, and that's the basic nature of the Bhojpuri music cultures in India. The way my mother used to sing, the way and that very slow, like अपने गईले परदेस रे विदेशिया, no, like गवना कराई पिया घर बैठावले से अपने गईले परदेस रे विदेशिया. It's a very slow tune, no? Very pathetic. But when this community settled there, they had to live with the blacks, with the Caribbeans, with the native public, and they have very fast beat of the song. They have fast beating song traditions, dance or this kind of rap or this kind of various kinds of very fast music they have. So they also, our community, these migrant communities, indentured community, they also improvise their music tradition based on the local condition. And then it's very interesting to observe the slow song tradition which we have, the same song which we sing in a very slow tune in India. They sing and perform in a fast beat. We had organized in our institute interface between Bhojpuri musician, folklorist of India, musician and folklorist of the Maurice, Suriname, and the Netherlands, the indentured, those who are migrated to Netherlands, and we saw this difference. The same songs they were singing in a different way because they had to sing in a different culture, in different traditions, different social traditions. So in this way, you can find there are a lot of modifications took place in that musical traditions, and the fast music, this chutney, you can see this because they have to dance also. In India, we have this dance is missing from Bhojpuri culture because dance is entirely different genre, and people mostly higher caste people are not allowed to dance in our social traditions, because dance is not considered very good. But the way our urbanization is growing, this cosmopolitan culture are expanding. So dance is entering in the Bhojpuri music here also. Like the Bhojpuri musics of the India, you can find they are also using now fast beats and the fast song because the youngers want to dance on the DJ with the using the DJ marriage songs, and the shadi mein they want to dance with it. So changes are also appearing here. But what it is appearing here, it appeared 40 years ago in destinations. Because they had a different kind of social challenge to survive in those societies. So music is also appear as an identity marker. Music is identity. Like you have, like Caribbeans, natives, you have very fast music. We have also very fast music. You can dance. We can also dance. To just responding to the settled community that we are not different. And we are not different. And what you have, we have also. So we are not loser in this way. So migrant always the migrant psyche. Migrant always try to prove that in the destination, because they went, they suffer through many losses, and so migrant always become very hard worker, very studious, because they have to always prove, because they left very precious thing of their life and the life history. So in this way, music also appear as an identity marker, and there you can find this process of hybridity take place, and this hybridity appear in various ways. And what is happening that with the Bhojpuri music it is losing its the story of the suffering as a base of the Bhojpuri culture, which they had, which they took with them. And now the joy and the happiness and the celebrations are appearing as a part of the base of it. But it does not mean that they don't have memory of suffering. When you talk to them, they will start crying. Many times they start crying while talking about themselves, their society, what they live. And in Netherlands, there was a time when you go to Amsterdam and they see you that you are from India, the migrants, they used to catch you. Chalo, come to our house or aapko hamare saath rahiye. And all the time they will talk about themselves. No, हम इस गांव से आए थे, ऐसे आए थे, हमारे दादा ये थे, हमारे पिता ये थे. There is a friend of mine, is a professor in Amsterdam, Chewny, and he has written a lot of books on that, migration. So Chan Chewny, no? So Chan is he's not very pro of India, no? He does not like India because he says, oh, India बहुत गरीबी है, very poverty. But he always willing to talk about the village which he left. So whenever he meets 4 or 5 hours, he will explore you about his grandfather or great-great-grandfather and the village. So you can see the linkages. Even those who are very happy, those who don't like Indian poverty or Indian, they are also very attached with India. So you should not being misled by their obvious comments about India. And whenever we were performing, we had organized a meeting in Netherlands, in Amsterdam, about this Bhojpuri music. And we observed that many people were crying while listening to this Bhojpuri songs, which our performers were performing there, because they have suffering in their hidden memories somewhere, and those may be evoked when this tune and tuner they listen, because they have evolved a new tone and tuner, but they still in their memory these tone and tuners are there, because music is an identity. Music is also very hidden part of your personality. It makes you. It gives you. One of my friend is a eminent, is a very big entrepreneur in Netherlands, and he used to say me, what India means for us, not to going back to again in Bhojpur or Bihar. India means for us कि हम किसी island में बैठे हुए हैं and listening the songs of the Mukesh and the Mohammad Rafi. That's India for us. So you can see how music is linking them, music with and memory. It's one of very interesting episode. Anecdote I'll tell to you, and then I'll finish my discussion. There is a eminent politician of the Netherlands, this is Bhojpuri migrants, Nami migrants, and Robin Baldev Singh. He's also a poet, and he used to tell me that अभी हम होली में इस बार बिहार गए थे, भोजपुर गए थे. हमने कहा बिहार में कहाँ गए थे? भोजपुर गए थे. खूब बढ़िया होली मनाए, खूब रंग खेले. तो हमने कहा कि अच्छा भोजपुर में कहाँ गए थे? कहा बॉम्बे गए थे. तो for them everything is India and everything is Bhojpur, everything is Bihar. One of the migrants met me in Netherlands, and he said कि अभी बिहार जाते हैं हर साल. तो कहाँ जाते हैं बिहार में? कहा पांडिचेरी. For him पांडिचेरी is Bihar. And पांडिचेरी में क्या करते हैं? तो गांव में गाय खरीद के गांव में दे आते हैं क्योंकि लोग दूध पिएंगे. No, so you can understand how the soil appears through various ways in their memories, and music is one of the way through which they connect with the root, but with improvisation, with new editions, with new evolutions. And like the musical history of the Suriname, and they have a music, they have a instrument. जो I'm not अभी मुझे याद नहीं है. I'm not able to remember the name of that baja, There is a rod, and in the rod through they use the small iron bow, and they used to beat it. And they say that it is our invention. It is our invention. It was not in India. We brought it. We evolved here in our destination. But when I started looking the history of the Bhojpuri music of the various communities, I came to know that baja was the part of the musical tradition of the Yadav, the Ahir caste. This is called Ahiraua. When they used to sing Ahiraua, they used to use that baja. Dandatal, that's the name of the baja is Dandatal. So Dandatal, what is this? Actually, there is a urge among the migrants to always try to link themselves with the root, but also try to prove themselves original. Look, we have invented this. We have evolved this. But and they evolve and they invent many things different from the Indian roots. But there are some continuum also, and those continuum sometimes they re-emphasize in their own ways. So here I'm going to stop, Maltiji, and so Daryl maybe carry on and whenever if the question answer will come, I can respond to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was wonderful the way the meshing of culture and music and migrancy came out in what you had to tell us. And just to offer a quick translation for Daryl, the anecdote that Professor talked about was when he spoke to certain migrants and they said, we went back to our village. And he said, where? And he said, we went to Bhojpur, to Bihar. And he said, which place did you go to in Bhojpur and Bihar? And they said, we went to Bombay, which is nowhere near Bihar. So, and then another one said, we went to Pondicherry, which again is down south and nowhere near Bihar. So the point he was trying to make is that for them, it is India. India is Bhojpur and Bihar for them. So the concept of home is not confined to the village or to the state to which they really belong, but to the country as a whole. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Anamika.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Badri Narayan, for that interesting explanation of the mingling of cultures and traditions and carrying forward the tradition down from India to those different distant lands. It was actually very interesting and at the same time more inspiring. We get to understand how the memory travels, how culture travels. We get to understand that what I understand that Chatani music, as the name suggests, it has constantly traveled from the Bhojpuri folk songs that talked about the devotional and the festive music, the songs of everyday life. And now it has, got a peep into the popular dance numbers and songs also. So over time, probably we understand that harmonium and the dhandatal and the dholak has also given way to the keyboards, to the guitars, to drum and other electronic music. So, it has come up, as Professor Badri Narayan suggested, it has come up a very long way in a very, very short time. It has been, earlier it was kind of a therapeutic release for suffering, and also it suggested a yearning for one's homeland. And now it is also transforming to those catchy and intoxicating party numbers and pop tunes. But one thing which remains unchanged is the unmistakable Indian style, which remains very, very constant to it. So far from the sugarcane fields where the ancestors toiled, the artists are striving hard to keeping the tradition of their forefathers alive. This is a journey which almost started or began some 200 years ago away from their motherland. So thank you, sir, for that vivacious and picturesque and a very simple explanation and a description of the journey. As we move ahead and we are celebrating music here at the Center for Modern Indian Languages at the School of Humanities at the Indira Gandhi Open National University. As we move ahead, I would like to, we're going to have another speaker with us, He is Mr. Daryl Baksh, and he's going to talk about chutney music in the Caribbean. So a brief description of Mr. Daryl. Born in Toronto to the Indo-Caribbean immigrants from Guyana and Trinidad, he is a PhD candidate in the Cultural Studies program at the University of West Indies, St. Augustine campus at Trinidad. His research explores what the mixings and remixings in Trinidad's chutney soca music reveal about the complexities and the complications of Indo-Caribbean identity in the 21st century. So we are all eager to listen to him and try to understand how this Indo-Caribbean identity has sustained itself in the 21st century. So I welcome you, Mr. Daryl Baksh, and over to you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Narayan, for a very interesting overview and introduction. I was making some notes while you were talking, so I'm hoping that my talk will fill in some of the gaps. So I'm going to just maybe open with some thoughts, and then I do have a PowerPoint presentation prepared with audio and video, because it's not fair to talk about the music and not hear it and not see it. I want to thank Professor Mathur for reaching out to me to speak today. And this talk will center around practices of mixing and remixing and really the meeting of cultures. And what I hope to do is to chart and review some important moments, and I can't focus on all of them. It's interesting that Anamika said that, these are relatively new music, and it's very true. In terms of the popularity of the music in the Caribbean, we're only talking about 20, 25 years of recorded music. The oral traditions would have existed long before that, but even within those 2 decades, a lot of music has been produced, a lot of changes have happened in a relatively short space of time. So I wanted to choose some important moments and offer some reflections and insights as to how a folk song practice has been revitalized and modernized into a popular form of Caribbean dance music. Because definitely chutney and chutney soca in Trinidad is dance music. And it has become very attached to the carnival tradition in Trinidad, and that's something I will speak about later on in the talk. Now, as much as this introduction historical overview is chronological, it's not a linear narrative. This is a complex, complicated, and sometimes confusing story, and it's a story still in progress, but it's a story of how chutney music signifies and quote unquote sounds Bhojpuri in the Caribbean. I use re, the prefix re a lot in my work, and I was reflecting on the usage of that re and this idea of what that symbolizes, what that means, and this thing of to do again or to do again and again. And even in that repetition, there's also this thing of going back to something, returning to something. And I'm hoping that when you see the examples that I use, you'll understand this use of remix and revitalizing and reinventing and reimagining, because I think chutney offers a lot of possibilities in how we reimagine music, how we reimagine identity. As Professor Narayan said, music is a marker of identity. So I'm hoping that by the end of the talk, you will have an understanding of chutney music in maybe a more better way than you had before. And initially, I had titled this talk Bhojpuri Bacchanal, and I will explain what Bacchanal is, but I also hope that you will leave with some understanding of what that is. So if I can share my screen, that's okay. Oh, it says the host has disabled screen sharing.
You can't share it?
No, I'm hitting it now.
Can I request, Mithun, can you please allow screen sharing? Mithun, please enable screen sharing for our speaker. Have you got it, Darren?
No.
I'm calling the technical team, Darren. Just a second.
Okay, no problem.
Mithun, please. Whoa.
And maybe as we wait, Professor Narayan, is talking a lot about memory, and I'm hoping that you will see for sure this idea of remembering and memory and how it's being used and reused again in chutney music over time. I will explain some more about the plantation life and what that means in terms of the hybridity that Professor Narayan was talking about, and even the concept of home, the idea of resettlement and what that resettlement in the Caribbean has meant in terms of culture and musical tradition.
And I'm sorry it's taking a few minutes.
No, that's okay. I mean, I can start a little bit because I don't have my first set of screens aren't videos or anything. Basically, I had a map of the Caribbean for anybody who didn't know where it was, and a map of Trinidad. And I'm not sure if people are familiar with the history of indenture and Indians even coming to the Caribbean. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but I want to make it clear that Africans were brought as slaves to the Caribbean to work the sugarcane plantations. And by 1834, you have the abolition of slavery. And post-abolition, you still have land in certain islands in the Caribbean. Definitely, Jamaica was king, Barbados was king of sugar. You had other islands, you had Trinidad, some of the smaller islands to the east and southeast of the Caribbean. And then you also had colonies in South America, Guyana and Suriname. And because there was land that was still arable, the plantation owners petitioned the British to find another source of labor. And that's how indenture happens. And initially, it's not the Indians who are chosen as the group who come there. And that's why in the Caribbean now we have people who trace their ancestry to the Portuguese from the island of Madeira. We also have Caribbean people who trace their ancestry to China. They came as indentured laborers, and those projects weren't successful. Most of the people who come from that ancestry went into business, and the Indians were eventually chosen, and the majority of them came from the Bhojpuri speaking regions of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. We also had a minority that came from the South, even in the Caribbean now. We still refer to them as Madrasis, say as coming from, the Madras region of India. So you have to understand there was a plantation and a hierarchy system in place by the time the Indians arrived to the Caribbean. And they weren't supposed to remain in the Caribbean. They were supposed to be transient settlers. They were there to work the sugar plantations, make money with the promise of a free return passage to India. And that didn't happen. A lot of them stayed, and there are various reasons. The historical records tell us of why they stayed. And I know definitely for a lot of the Indians in Trinidad, they were offered parcels of land, and a lot of them took it and resettled. And if you look at, great, I have screen sharing now, so thank you so much. Is everybody able to see the screen now?
Yes, Darren, I can.
Okay, lovely. So again, there's the Caribbean. So I'm talking the smaller islands I was talking about, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Grenada, the Grenadines, Trinidad is at the end of the Caribbean chain there. And this is a map of Trinidad. And Trinidad has been paired politically with the smaller island of Tobago, which is about a 15-minute flight ride from Trinidad. Just in terms of where Trinidad and how Trinidad looks, The areas to the north, and you'll see Port of Spain, which is the capital of Trinidad, we consider that north. And you'll see there's a city, Chaguanas, that's Vancouver, that's what we consider central Trinidad, and then San Fernando, Princestown, Siparia, that's South Trinidad. And there's a whole geography also attached to slavery and indenture. And by the time the indentured laborers arrive to Trinidad, a lot of the now freed Africans leave the plantations, and there are many of them in the central and southern part of the island, and they migrate into the north. So the north kind of became this administrative and urban and business hub, whereas the central and southern regions remain very agricultural. And you find that even today, a lot of descendants of Indian indentured laborers still live in the central and southern parts of the island. So indenture, as Boer states in her writing in 2019, she says that indenture connects histories of different parts of the world and allows us to consider the indentured experience and its afterlife. And Bhojpuri folk music evolving into chutney is a legacy of this discourse. And with the movement of indentured migrants, as Professor Narayan let us know, a variety of musical traditions arrived to the region. And in the Caribbean, that included semi-classical singing performed mostly by men. You also had bhajans that came, but they predominantly were folk songs that were performed by women. And these were reassembled and readapted in Trinidad. They were sung in Bhojpuri, and Bhojpuri would emerge as this main language amongst the communities of Indians who came as Jahaji Bhai and Jahaji Behen on the ship to the Caribbean. Women's folk songs become especially significant, and they were performed in private settings that celebrated Hindu marriages and Hindu childbirth especially. But why chutney though? And I like how Anamika shared with us this description of chutney. And there is no simple answer. And there are many stories, many urban legends circulating as to who first coined the term, who invented it. You have a lot of artists who said, well, I was the first one, or producers who say, well, no, I invented the term chutney. But in the Caribbean, we have generally accepted that it comes from the heat and the taste of chutney that you eat. The music is as hot and spicy as chutney you would eat. And that is how chutney kind of stuck. As Professor Narayan said, the music, which would have started off slow and with songs of memory, songs of loss, songs of suffering, then began to pick up tempo. And in the Hindu wedding settings, there are certain periods in the night, especially earlier on, where you sing semi-classical songs, and then by the time people are enjoying themselves, especially when alcohol is flowing, you want to change the pace and have more songs that are celebratory, that are joyful, that you can enjoy while intoxicated, while they are intoxicating songs and sounds themselves. We could also say chutney is a type of masala. It's a mixture of so many different things, and you're going to see how complex and how diverse that mix has become in Trinidad. Definitely the defining musical instruments of chutney are the dholak, the dantal, and the harmonium. And the lyrics of chutney and the themes and its melodies, they're characterized by a lot of simplicity, repetition, and lightheartedness. Definitely, this is a folk type of music. This is an oral music that came through oral tradition. So we're not talking about music that is meant to have a deeper type of message. We are talking about music that reflects people's lived realities, that reflects popular themes, that reflects celebrating life. I want to give you an example of what we would call a chutney session. And this is actually a recent session. So these are things that continue to happen even into the 21st century. And this was just earlier this month, where a producer who makes music for some of our chutney artists in Trinidad, he gathered them all together for what we call a lime. And a lime is a social gathering in Trinidad. And they brought their musical instruments and they began to sing and dance and have a good time. So this would be a typical live chutney session in the island. Why didn't that play? Okay. I don't think we're hearing the music, right?
There is no audio.
Okay, let me try that again. An example of what a typical live session would be, and that's probably to the point where, you know, the drinks have been flowing, everybody's having a good time, and the music comes out and everybody feels to party and dance. We have an artist called Sundar Popo, and he is recognized widely as the pioneer of the chutney sound in Trinidad in the 1970s. And I want to stress the significance of chutney emerging from a women's folk song tradition. I don't think we stress that enough, and that gets taken up by Indian men. And I want to suggest that that is also happening because there's a parallel calypso tradition that's happening in Trinidad. And calypso is the carnival music that evolves out of African traditions and the carnival celebrations in Trinidad. So you have calypso and that sound already existent in the island by the time Indians arrive as indentured laborers. Some of the historical records and even some family memories would have you believe that Indians and Africans in Trinidad were isolated, that they didn't share culture, that these cultures evolved separately. And I think that's very far from the actual truth. I think there was a lot of crossover, there was a lot of mixing, there was a lot of meeting of sounds, of peoples, and just trying to learn how to live with another group of people that were inevitably not actually meant to be together. And it's chutney and also Afro-Caribbean carnival music is, as Professor Narayan says, you know, a story of survival. How have these musics and sounds and languages survived? So Sundar Popo in an interview stated that, you know, he was in this chutney thing because when he was 6 years old, his mother and his aunt used to carry him in wedding houses because they used to sing. And because he was a young boy, there was nobody to see about him at home. So because they had nowhere to go, he used to go with them and he learned the music and he learned the songs from them. So these songs were transmitted to Sundar Popo and he found success by reinventing and popularizing them in the 1970s calypso scene in Trinidad. And we also have to realize that there's also a burgeoning recording industry in Trinidad at the time. So a lot of calypsonians are recording calypso music. Some of them are migrating out of the island, going to America to record music. But we do have recording studios at the time in Trinidad. So you had Indian artists who were recording Indian music alongside African artists who were recording calypso music. He also used to record with one of the popular Indian orchestras, as we used to call them at the time, led by Harry Mahabir. And a lot of the bands in Trinidad were sponsored by different corporations. So at the time, the National Indian Orchestra was sponsored by BWIA, which was British West Indian Airways at the time. And a lot of Sundar Popo's music was sung in a mixture of Bhojpuri and Trinidadian English Creole. He presented vignettes that resonated with particular lived experiences, although they were from a rural perspective. Around the same time in this post-independent Trinidad, where politically there's a quest for national identity that was taking place, we had a calypsonian called Lord Shorty. He later named himself Ras Shorty I. He envisioned a type of music called soca, spelled S-O-K-A-H. And his vision was that this music would bridge tensions between the African and Indian communities because it would combine the main rhythmic structures of Trinidad's main ethnic groups. The so embodied the so from calypso, so the last syllable, and the ka, the first consonant of the Hindi alphabet, reflected the Indian community. In a 1989 documentary, he stated that calypso is African and it's an expression of our ancestral ties, and how we sing is African. So the calypso itself mixed with what he called the East Indian rhythm is soca. And we have this thing where, because of colonialism, Indians who resettled in the Caribbean after indentureship were known as East Indians. It's a term I move away from now. It's still used by a lot of people. I think it has a way of still distancing belonging and understanding belonging and this new idea of home. And, you know, I really try to encourage the use of Indo-Caribbean now, although you will still hear and see in the literature a lot of usage of East Indian. So soca would represent this blending and a togetherness that form the soul or inner depth of Trinidad. Shorty always condemned for his musical experimentation, and I want to play you an example of what that sounds like. So this was one of his first early songs, 1973, called Indrani, and you'll definitely hear Indian influences alongside calypso influences in this song.
I beg she please translate for me. Indrani, oh jeez, you're driving me crazy. Woman, what you want? I would like to know. Must be important for you to behave so. She bolo beta beta, pani pani awela, screaming off she head and insist I get she pani in bed. Even here she Lelo me want them better, yam better, ram better, lelo ha.
You can definitely hear the mixture of sounds, a mixture of cultures. It was one of the earliest calypsos that had Indian influence. And while we could maybe now in 2022 celebrate that blending of sounds, at the time, Shorty was condemned for that kind of experimentation. And according to him, the Africans complained he was spoiling calypso, the Indians complained he was desecrating their music. He was trying to play Indian, to mix the Indian and the African, and the two can't work. So the project failed because at the time, Trinidadian society was not ready to accept a sound that marked Indian inclusion. And that was pointing to some deeper fears by the Afro-Trinidadian population over a possibility of Indo-Caribbean subjugation. And we're talking about, this is post-independent Trinidad. You have definitely, in terms of the intellectuals and the political movement, a lot of Trinidadian Blacks who are leading that movement. Indian Trinidadians are still very much rural and agricultural. So the music, it was a reflection of the nation at the time, a reflection of how identity was being understood at the time. And Indians was not seen as participating in the national project as the same way that Blacks would have been participating in the national project. So what did Shorty do? He removed all the Bhojpuri folk instruments and he used their rhythms instead and placed them on Western instruments. So you will hear in the drum set and the triangle and the guitar, things that he would have took from the dholak and the dantal and the harmonium. Shorty has since been touted as the creator of soca because what happened, the SOKAH got turned into SOCA. And the story goes that a newspaper journalist spelled SOKAH wrong in an article, but the SOCA took over. And that SOCA became the Afro-Caribbean carnival expression of calypso dance music. So essentially a reinvention of calypso. So to return to Sundar Popo, he continued to record into the 1980s, and during the early part of the decade, a reversal was also occurring from India. And we had Babla and Kanchan, who was an act. There's a feedback from somewhere, I'm not sure.
Nandini, could you please mute? Nandini?
सारे सब्जेक्ट याद मैं पिला दूंगी।
I'd like to request everyone to please mute their audios. Darryl, I think now you can go on.
Okay, sure, no problem. So as I was saying, there was also a reverse flow happening in the 1980s, and we had Babla and Kanchan, who were an act from Bombay actually, who began recording cover versions of these chutney folk songs and then exporting them back to the Caribbean. And they brought a distinct sound and style to their reinventions of a lot of the music that Sundar Popo would have recorded in terms of his folk repertoire. But they also started this trend of recording Hindi versions of popular calypso and soca songs of the 1980s and 1990s as well. So what I've put together here are the same song, first sung by Sundar Popo, and then moves into the version recorded by Babla and Kanchan.
चादर बिछाओ बालमा चौदरिया चादर बिछाओ बालमा नींद लगे चल सोए रहना नींद लगे चल सोए रहना मोरे ससुर जी के दुई दुई महलिया सबसे सुंदर हमार महला चौदरिया चादर बिछाओ बालमा नींद लगे चल सोए रहना नींद लगे चल सोए रहना
चादर बिछाओ बलमा चौदरिया चादर बिछाओ बलमा नींद लगे चल सोए रहना नींद लगे चल सोए रहना मोरे ससुर जी के दुई दुई महलिया मोरे ससुर जी के दुई दुई महलिया सबसे सुंदर हमारो महला चौदरिया चादर बिछाओ बलमा नींद लगे चल सोए रहना
What's very interesting is that the Babla and Kanchan version tended to be more popular than some of the original versions that would have been recorded by Sundar Popo and his counterparts. And even now, if you go to parties, we call them fetes in Trinidad. If you go to chutney fetes, you will hear a lot of Babla and Kanchan. You'll still hear Sundar Popo, but you will hear a lot of Babla and Kanchan played. And I also know that amongst Indo-Guyanese communities, Babla and Kanchan are also a very popular group when it comes to Indian music. Now, all of these versions, these mixings, these meetings of sounds and languages point to processes of creolization. And the hybridity that Professor Narayan would have been talking about is really talking about the term creolization. And this idea that it's used in linguistics to talk about language, development of a new language, but also used culturally, mainly in the context of colonialism, most often where people of various languages and cultures were transported to colonies as slaves or indentured workers. And creolization is about destruction, it's about reinvention, it's about transformation, it's about reimagination. And creolization is a process of this cultural mixing, changing, adapting, experimenting that creates something new and unique to its context. The Caribbean poet Kamal Braffett, his creolization model has often been used to understand Caribbean society. But he tends to think of it in terms of this Black-white axis, the African-European axis. And that's not wrong. That was the existing hierarchy at the time, but it also makes it difficult to understand other groups who come to the region post-slavery. There are a lot of Indians who, if you speak to them, even in Trinidad and Guyana now, and talk to them about you are creolized or your music or your language is creolized, it comes off as offensive to some of them because there's this understanding that Creole also signifies Blackness and signifies Black culture, Black language. So we have these tensions and negotiations and anxieties even around using creolization in tandem with understanding Indianness in the Caribbean. To counter that, we've had culinary metaphors that have also arisen, and the work of Iranjani Munasinghe, Aisha Khan, and Shalini Puri talk about the kalaloo versus the tossed salad, and those theories emerged in the early 2000s. And food has definitely been a site of togetherness for Caribbean bodies. Indian cuisine in the Caribbean, the way that it has evolved for us because of indenture, continues to be savored and celebrated, exoticized, and sometimes denigrated. And Munasinghe thinks about kalaloo and tossed salad in the following way. To assert racial and cultural distinctiveness, the image of that tossed salad takes precedence maybe for some Indian communities to that of the kalaloo. And the kalaloo is a dish where there are a spinach plant called the dasheen. It's a provision. The leaves from that plant we use, and we grind those up with okra, with pumpkin, with scallions, with herb called culantro. It's also called shadowberry or bandania. We also call it in Trinidad. Hot pepper, coconut milk. We boil all those into this dark green soup. And you can't recognize each individual ingredient by the time that soup is made. So the kalaloo would reflect that kind of unity and diversity, hybridity, but it's threatening in the sense that you lose things, you lose the distinctiveness because now you can't see the individual ingredients that make up the kalaloo. Whereas in the tossed salad, we can see the lettuce, we could see the tomatoes, we could see the cucumbers. And the idea of the tossed salad might sit better with certain Indian groups because of that need to be represented, that need to be distinct, that need to be recognized. So understanding that Indians were joining a society that was already Creole, they were adapting while actually never being considered Creole. And indeed, understanding and recognizing the creative emergence of difference demands a type of creative conceptuality. And when we theorize how difference is produced, we borrow from these concepts of hybridity and fusion and creolization. And definitely we have to think about migrancy and travel within those discourses. But it's also so much about mixing and relationality. Even where there are boundaries and even where, boundaries may or may not be policed, they soon become blurred and erased. And definitely chutney is a site, I think, for some of that blurring and erasure of those boundaries. And chutney music is a site that allows us to see how creolization continues to take place. And I think one artist who is one of the best examples of this is Drupati. And this is Drupati. She was the first Indo-Caribbean woman to come out on the Calypso stage and to sing And this is her first big hit in 1988. She blended Tassa drumming, and you see the Tassa on the album cover there, with soca music, and also the kind of sexy and flirtatious style of vocal delivery and sound of Bhojpuri music. So that's Drupati, and I just want to show you a video. Drupati is renowned for the way she dances on stage. So this whole thing of winding your waist, which is a very African style of dancing. We dance like that for carnival, but Indians have adopted that style of dance, and it has been brought also into the chutney soca arena.
When I first came out, it had some critics, being an Indian woman in singing calypso, being there on stage. They didn't like that at all. Being an Indian, I'm not supposed to be singing for a large audience in a tent in the calypso arena, and I shouldn't be doing those things. They're supposed to stay home. That is what they think of the Indian woman, that they're supposed to stay home and mind their children and do the housework. But in my case, I wanted to get out there.
So Drupati faced a lot of flack for coming out and singing calypso and then moving into chutney. She's still a popular artist. Drupati has to be well into her 60s, yet she still performs. She still performs soca music. She still performs chutney. And just moving forward in time a little bit, because I want to speed up things. I have a few more audio video examples that I really want you to hear. 1995 is a big year in Trinidad because it's the first time that a prime minister of Indian descent comes to political power. And with that ascent, there's this prompting of an Indian cultural renaissance. And because of that, we begin to see even in soca music, a lot of Indian influence, a lot of chutney coming into the soca. And this whole thing of chutney soca is the new rage now. Chutney being understood as that evolution of this indentured form, but still a very folksy type of tradition, versus the soca, which is seen as this modernized carnival sound that the young people, the younger generations are into. In the 1995 carnival, the song Chutney Bacchanal was a hit. And music videos that featured Indianness at the time were patterned chiefly out of understandings of Hindi cinema. So the idea of filming outside, filming amongst the trees, what you would see in love song sequences in some of the older Bollywood films, those aesthetics were adopted in a lot of the chutney soca music videos of the mid-1990s. And this idea of bacchanal is a term we use a lot in carnival. It can symbolize or describe that type of festive energy that powers the carnival traditions in Trinidad. But it's also a very quintessential Trinidadian term for any social commotion of scandal, of trouble, of confusion, of disorder. Maybe the parallel Bhojpuri term that I know might be janjat or couture. We have bacchanal. And for carnival and with chutney, there's always some type of bacchanal. So I want to show you an example of.
This is what it sung like, Jamie, mommy, alright. This is what it sung like to me. Jade, book, jade, book, jade, book, G. Jade, book,
So definitely in our chutney soca portrayals, there's a lot of, the flashy, chumke dance, the Indian wear. These are things we don't wear normally. We dress up if we have to go to temple. We dress up for Hindu weddings. We don't wear saris, langas, kurtas, that sort of thing on a day-to-day basis. Yet that symbolism and that visual has become very much attached to the chutney soca performance, the portrayals. Visually, if you want to see or go to see Indian music, you see chutney music, it's a staple that you will see these girls dressed in Indian finery dancing to the music. At the same time, Chutney Bacchanal is happening. Sunny Man comes out and his big song is Lote La. It's a runaway chutney hit, and it prompts the start of the Chutney Soca Monarch competition, which is a competition that judges the best chutney soca artists for the carnival season in Trinidad. And that's the logo for the Chutney Soca Monarch, which is still taking place up to this day. They just had the last competition, and I believe it should be now 26 years that they've been holding this competition for carnival. A very huge hit for the Carnival 1995 season, not just amongst Indian audiences, but the whole of the island of Trinidad knew Lote La. Even now, if you play that song, it's still a big hit on the dance floors at any party or any club. Also, I wanted to show an example of what was happening on the Chutney Soca stage in the early 2000s. And the quality of this is not good because it comes from a VHS, but this competition is broadcast on local television in the island. And I want to give you an example of what you would see in terms of the performance aesthetics. So that was the early to mid 2000s. By 2009, we have a change in chutney, and that style of the fast music, the mix of the Bhojpuri and the Trinidadian English Creole is now taking way to something different. And there's a younger generation of artists who want to do something different. And in 2009, the song Radhika becomes a runaway hit for the carnival. It's sung by the gentleman's picture you see there. His name is Kenneth Salick. And what is happening now in the music, the producers and the songwriters are lifting Bollywood film melodies and rewriting the lyrics and singing about realities that Trinidadian, Caribbean, Indo-Caribbean communities can understand. They actually turn into rum songs as well. And that rum song thing is a big thing within the chutney industry now, taking the love songs, more serious, sad songs of Bollywood, and changing them into songs that glorify, celebrate rum drinking, intoxication. I'll give you an example of the second one. So this was O Satire from the movie Mukada Kastikanda, and the artist you see there, Ravi B, he sang a song about being a rum drinker.
हर धड़कन में प्यास है तेरी, सांसों में तेरी खुशबू है, इस धरती से उस अंबर तक मेरी नजर में तू ही तू है। प्यार ये टूटे ना, प्यार ये टूटे ना, तू मुझसे रूठे ना, साथ ये झूठे कभी ना, तेरे बिना भी क्या जीना ओ साथी रे, तेरे बिना भी क्या जीना, तेरे बिना भी क्या जीना।
You can't change man away, girl, you know I was a drinker, you always know I was a drinker. Every time I line in, cell phone only ringing, my partner's laughing, they know it's you who calling, saying that you miss me and to come home early. Come let we hug up and watch a Indian movie. Why you trying to change me? Why you trying to change me? Tell me you're too blind to see that I will never come home sober. Girl, you know I was a drinker, you always know I was a drinker.
So that trend has become the Bolly knee trend, Bolly from Bollywood and the knee from chutney. It still continues to this day. And that was a big thing, I would say, from about 2009 until 2012. By 2012, there's this yearning to return to the Bhojpuri sound of chutney. People feel the music is going too much in a direction that's not remembering these legacies of indenture that came to the region. So we have then this resurgence of traditional chutney, or what's being called traditional chutney. It's also being called the Chatak Matak chutney. The songs that are very much going back into the Hindu wedding. A lot of the younger artists singing in Bhojpuri are continuing now to bring in a blend of Bhojpuri and Trinidadian English Creole. I think I will leave with one more video and then just a few concluding thoughts. This is a video of the same artist you heard, Ravi B. His sister also sings. Her name is Nisha B. And there was a song this year that they wrote called Grindy Dal. And there was a dance that was created that you'll see in the song, but it was remembering what the women do when they go to Parch Lawa for the Bhojpuri Hindu wedding celebration. So just to offer some concluding thoughts, as you can see, chutney music in the Caribbean and Trinidad, and I mean, I've privileged Trinidad as the main site here because it's where a lot of the music is being created and being produced even as of now. We can see that there's this negotiation, this navigation of the roots that Professor Narayan talked about, and this kind of modernizing identity. And we still don't know what that is. We still don't know exactly how to define it. I always say Indo-Caribbean communities are still in between. We're neither African, even though we joined a Creole society. We're neither fully Indian because we left the motherland a long time ago, and now home is a different place. And we've tried to recreate home, recreate tradition by a lot of memory. And that memory has been passed on through the generations. And even you have now people who are my age or younger who don't know some of the ancestral things. There's a lot of cultural gatekeeping, and the trappings of memory and nostalgia and tradition keep haunting us. Yet there are possibilities of modernity. And I think you can see within the mixings and the meetings of the cultures that, you know, make up chutney music, that there are a lot of possibilities for reimagining what music could be, what language could be, what identity could be. And these intersections are these various intersections of mixing, in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of language, and in terms of musical sound. And it's how we're reenacting those things and revamping those things that are very interesting to me. And indeed, the ongoing saga of Indo-Caribbean in identity formation is the ways in which tensions of tradition and modernity are constantly being navigated towards a state of becoming and belonging that is never fully resolved. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Daryl. I just had a very quick question. Now that more and more Bhojpuri songs are being written, I'm not sure, because I seem to have read somewhere that they don't really know the language, but they just put in words together which rhyme or something like that. So they are not really aware of the meaning. Is that true?
For some of it, I know that Dr. Visham Bimal, he has been a proponent of trying to help a lot of the artists write songs, and he has written lyrics for a lot of the artists, the younger ones, who don't speak Bhojpuri, who don't speak Hindi. Generally, I don't know if everybody knows, but like no Indian language is a language of fluency amongst my generation or the generations who are younger than me. Yes, there are classes that people can take in university. A lot of Hindus who are involved in the temple, some of the temples will offer Hindi language classes. So you have parents that might send their children to learn Hindi through that route, but generally it's not a language of conversation in the island. So it is very true. And what we do is also kind of like, it's the morphology of the language as well. So we'll take the verbs from Bhojpuri and then, you know, make them English. So we, bhunjayin dilawa, we chaunkayin didal. A lot of things that come from food, a lot of verbs of the house, of things that have to do with the wedding. Yes, we do that, and it's the rhyming as well. And that also comes from that Western tradition that the calypso and the soca is about. There's a lot of rhyming lyrics in that type of music. So I think to parallel that tradition, chutney and chutney soca has really fell along an axis of doing things or following the trends that have come in calypso and soca music.
Yes, Anamika.
Thank you, Daryl, for the beautiful, hope I'm audible. Yeah, okay, thank you, Daryl. Thanks a lot for that beautiful insight about this chutney music in the Caribbean. You know, it has been very interesting to hear to you, to listen to your understanding of the Caribbean and the Indian mix. You know, it has helped us understand the chutney music with a deeper insight and an entirely new perspective. You know, the way you talked about reimagining the music and also re-understanding and reimagining the identities. And the most interesting was those happy video and audio clippings. You know, we as Indians could relate to them. I just felt like, you know, we often hear those folk songs in the streets of those urban small towns, those rural towns in our own country. So we just felt like that we're going through those happy processions on the streets of our towns. It's really wonderful. It was really interesting to listen to you. And this tells us about the power of music. So we actually are celebrating this power of music here. It was very vibrant. Your discussion, your explanation of the entire blend of the blend of the Indian and the calypso. You also talked about how this mixing and remixing is going on, and then it's trying to blurring the boundaries. The boundaries are being blurred, so they're just getting blended beautifully. What I understand, and the most important was, and to which I could relate was, you mentioned things like pumpkin and the coconut milk. So you talked about the Indian food, the cuisine, and those all beautiful things. You even mentioned our attire like sari, so we could relate to what you were talking about. So what I understand is that chutney music is characterized by its probably an upbeat pace and a very simplistic subject matter. It talks about the tales of life, the tales of love, of the Indo-Caribbean life. They were sung to the sounds of dholak and other instruments like harmonium. And the delivery was always in a very distinct Creole accent. So it has evolved from its early traditions and religious roots, and now it showcases a distinct Indo dancehall flavor. Thank you, Daryl, once again.
I'd like to give Daryl a little snippet of information. Daryl, we had
this webinar.
Daryl, we had a very, very popular Hindi film called Gangs of Wasipur, in which we had chutney-based songs. And so that was something that we experienced through a Hindi film.
Yeah, I think so. I think Kaise Bani was in it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
May I?
Yes.
Okay. So I know I missed out on that because the internet was unstable. So probably we're coming to the end of this webinar. So I would like to call upon Dr. Pema from the School of Humanities, one of our colleagues, to kind of deliver a vote of thanks. Over to you, Pema.
Thank you, Anamika. May I, on behalf of the Center for Modern Indian Languages, School of Humanities.
Dr. Pema?
Am I audible?
You are.
Thank you.
You are audible, Pema, please.
Thank you. May I, on behalf of the Center for Modern Indian Languages, School of Humanities, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, offer the official vote of thanks. I'd like to begin by expressing our sincere gratitude to Professor Badri Narayan of G.B. Pant Social Science Institute, Allahabad. His interest in ethnography, culture, memory, history, and politics is what led to this morning's deliberations on memory travels, migration songs in Bhojpuri. Thank you very much for the wonderful journey that you traced for us of the path that Bhojpuri music took, along with the girmit, or the agreement that the indentured laborers signed with their British masters, along with their gunny bags or their bodis, which they carried, their memories, their nostalgia, little things that they took from home, all along to the erstwhile British colonies. Our special thanks to Daryl Baksh, a research scholar at the University of West Indies, whose interest in music history, Caribbean popular culture, and Caribbean music shed light on what is now becoming very popular in TNT, the chutney music in the Caribbean. I am familiar with calypso and reggae, Daryl, but now after having listened to you, I must look at soca and soca chutney as well. So thank you for that. And it gives me immense pleasure to thank these two gentlemen as they've brought to us today something that I personally enjoy. Our gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Nageshwar Rao, who is extremely encouraging and supportive of all our school's activities. Our Pro-Vice Chancellors, Dr. Shrikant Mahapatra, Professor Manroop Singh Meena, Professor Sumitra Kukreti, Professor Uma Kanjilal, Professor R.P. Das, and Professor Satyakam. Thank you for attending all our webinars and talks. The directors of schools, heads of divisions, units, centers, the Center for Online Education for their technical assistance, the computer division, the public information unit, and the faculty members of the IGNOU fraternity, and also our students who have logged in to participate in our deliberations this morning. We are grateful for the support and participation of each and every member of the School of Humanities, be they faculty, consultants, support staff, or contractual staff. Dr. Anamika Shukla, thank you for being such a gracious moderator. And last but not the least, a huge thank you to our director, Professor Malti Mathur, for conceptualizing the Center for Modern Indian Languages and for creating this platform where we can share such wonderful and enlightening insights into a hugely hitherto neglected area, which is that of the Indian languages, of the Bhasha languages. Not only are we able to look at literature and language, we're also looking at culture and other oral traditions through this platform, which is our Center for Modern Indian Languages. Let me also quickly put out a disclaimer in case my vote of thanks did not mention someone or several someones who needed to be thanked. I apologize sincerely. Please put it down to my not being well. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pema. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you, Darren.
Most welcome. Thank you so much for the opportunity.